The chains and the eyes. The air on the slave market world of Orath was heavy with smoke and iron. Chains clinked as humans stood in lines, heads down, their wrists bruised and their eyes empty. They were not soldiers now, not explorers or dreamers. Just things to be sold to the highest bidder. Among them stood a man named Ethan. He looked young, but the years of war and slavery had turned his face hard and silent. His back carried old scars, his clothes were torn, and his gaze stared at the ground. The alien auctioneer shouted in a strange tongue, his voice echoing over the metal platform. "Next, we have a strong human male, perfect for labor or combat," the alien barked. The crowd murmured. Some laughed, some looked disgusted. To them, humans were animals that once tried to fight the galaxy and lost. Ethan did not move. He had learned long ago that fighting brought pain. The guards beat anyone who looked proud. So he waited, silent, breathing slow. But deep inside him, something small still refused to die. A spark, hidden under the ash of years. The air shifted. A sudden hush spread across the market. From the sky, a golden craft descended slowly. The crowd stepped back, eyes wide. It was the royal sigil, the mark of the Varelian Empire. No one expected the royal family to come to a slave market. The ramp opened and a woman stepped out. Her skin shimmered faintly, silver with a soft blue glow under the sun. Her long white cloak brushed against the sand, and her eyes, bright violet like fire trapped in crystal, scanned the crowd. Every alien bowed, whispering her name, Princess Liara, daughter of the Emperor. She walked with calm grace, but her face was unreadable. The auctioneer stuttered, his voice shaking. Your Highness, what brings you to this place?" Liara ignored him. Her eyes moved across the lines of slaves until they stopped on Ethan. For a long moment, she just looked at him. Ethan felt it. That strange weight in her stare. He didn't bow, didn't kneel. He just looked back, his dull human eyes meeting the glow of hers. A guard hissed and raised his staff to strike him, but Liara lifted her hand. The entire market froze. Her voice was quiet but sharp as ice. "Don't hurt the human," she said. "I'll buy him." The words echoed through the market. Everyone stared. A princess buying a human? Impossible. Humans were forbidden in the royal court. The auctioneer blinked, confused. "Your Highness, perhaps you—" Her gaze cut through him like a blade. "Did I stutter?" she said softly. The alien swallowed hard and nodded quickly. The chains were removed from Ethan's wrists. The metal burned his skin as it came off, leaving deep red marks. He looked up at her, confused. She didn't smile, didn't speak again. She just turned and walked back toward her ship. Ethan was pushed to follow. He stumbled forward, still trying to understand. Why him? There were stronger men, younger men, but she had chosen him. As they entered the royal shuttle, Ethan felt the cold hum of alien technology around him. The doors sealed, and the city disappeared behind glass. The ship lifted off. He glanced at Liara, who sat across from him, staring out the window. The light of distant stars reflected in her eyes. Finally, he spoke, his voice rough from years of silence. Why did you buy me?" She turned her head slowly. Her eyes were calm, too calm. "Because you looked at me," she said. Ethan frowned. "Everyone looks at you." "No," she whispered. "They look down, or they look away. You didn't." He didn't know what to say. The silence stretched between them. The ship rose higher, leaving the slave city behind. Ethan looked through the glass at the planet shrinking below. He thought he would feel free, but instead, he felt trapped in a new kind of cage. One made of mystery, not metal. When the ship landed at the royal palace, the air shimmered with blue light and soft music. The palace was carved from crystal and metal, filled with creatures of every kind. All of them bowed as Liara passed, some whispered in fear, some in disgust. Ethan could hear their words. A human. Here. She's lost her mind. Does she plan to make him her pet? He ignored them. He had lived with worse. Inside the palace, Liara led him through endless halls until they reached a quiet chamber. "You will stay here," she said, pointing to a room that looked like a dream. Soft lights, clean clothes, real food. "You will not leave without my permission." Ethan nodded, still unsure if he was safe or just another possession. As she turned to leave, he asked softly, "Why me, princess?" Liara paused at the door. Her eyes glowed faintly. "Because sometimes the weakest chain hides the sharpest blade," she said, and then she was gone. Ethan stood alone in the silence of his new prison, staring at the food, the bed, the freedom he did not trust. Outside the window, the alien sky burned purple and gold. He whispered to himself, "Why did she really choose me?" And far above, in the royal tower, Princess Liara stood before a screen, watching his image, her voice barely a breath. "Because the galaxy is about to change, and I need a human to survive it." The Palace of Shadows. The palace of the Varelian Empire was not built by hands. It was grown, carved by light and sound. Its walls shimmered as if alive, pulsing faintly with energy from the stars themselves. Ethan had never seen such beauty or such danger. Every hallway whispered with eyes, every shadow felt like a test. He had been given clothes, dark fabric that shifted colors with his movement, soft, yet strange. They fit him perfectly, almost too perfectly. The food was real, clean and rich with flavor he had forgotten, yet he could not rest. This was not freedom, it was silence wearing a crown. Everywhere he went, the alien servants stared, some whispered, others laughed quietly behind his back. They called him savage, animal, the princess's mistake. Ethan ignored them. His eyes stayed sharp, watching, remembering. Days passed. Princess Liara did not visit him often. When she did, she spoke little, asking him questions that made no sense. "Do you dream? What do you remember about fire? Do you feel anything when the moon turns red?" Ethan had no answers. He was just a man trying to survive, or at least that's what he believed. One night, as the twin moons rose over the glass towers, Ethan heard it, a sound that didn't belong. A scream, faint but sharp, carried through the walls like a ghost. He froze. The guards outside his door didn't react, as if they didn't hear it or pretended not to. The next night it came again, this time closer. It sounded like metal grinding and something crying. He could not sleep. His heart pounded. Every instinct told him to stay still, but curiosity burned through him like heat in frozen blood. He waited until the guards changed shifts, then slipped through the door, barefoot and silent. The palace hallways glowed faintly, but deeper inside, the light grew dim. The walls became darker, colder. He moved carefully, breathing shallow, listening to the echoes of his own steps. Finally, he reached a door, black metal with strange blue veins running through it. The air was colder here. He pressed his ear to the door and the scream came again, low and broken. His hand shook, but he pushed it open. The chamber beyond was vast, filled with glass pods and chains hanging from the ceiling. A heavy smell of burnt metal filled the air. And at the center, something moved, a creature bound by energy cables, humanoid yet wrong. Its skin shimmered like Liara's, but cracked with red light beneath. Its eyes opened, bright and wild. "Help me," it whispered. Its voice was pain itself. Ethan stepped closer, every part of him screaming to run, but he couldn't. "Who are you?" he asked. The creature looked at him, its gaze almost human. "She said you would come." The human. Ethan froze. The words sank into him like cold water. Who said that? But before it could answer, the door behind him opened. A cold voice filled the room, calm, commanding. "I told you not to come here," Liara said. Ethan turned. She stood there in white armor, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. For a second, she didn't look like a princess. She looked like someone who had seen too much death. "What is this place?" he demanded. "Who is that?" Liara's gaze shifted to the creature, then back to Ethan. "That is my brother," she said softly. "Or what's left of him." The creature screamed again, its body flickering with light. "You said you would save me, sister." Liara's expression cracked, pain flashing across her face. "I tried," she whispered. "But they made him something else, a weapon, a warning. He cannot be freed, Ethan, not without destroying the palace." Ethan's mind spun. "Then why bring me here? Why buy me?" She stepped closer, her voice dropping low. "Because they will do the same to you." The room went silent. The chains rattled as the creature's eyes flared. "It's already begun," it hissed. Liara moved fast, pressing a glowing hand to Ethan's shoulder. His body burned. For a moment he saw flashes, images, experiments. Or humans screaming in alien laboratories, a symbol burning on his arm. The Guardian mark. He gasped, falling to his knees. The visions vanished. Liara caught him before he hit the ground. Her voice trembled for the first time. "You were made. Ethan, not born," she said, "but you are not what they think. You are the last Guardian. And if they find out you're awake, they will destroy us both." Ethan looked up at her, his breath shaking. "You should have left me in chains," he whispered. Liara shook her head. "No, I need you," she said. "Because the war is not over. It never ended. It just went silent, waiting for a human to wake it again." She turned to the creature, her brother, and lowered her eyes. "Forgive me," she whispered, pressing a small device on her wrist. The chamber lights flared, and the creature's voice turned into a roar of light and pain. The walls trembled. The air cracked like thunder. Ethan's vision blurred. He could hear Liara's voice fading. "Run if you want. But know this. You are not my slave, you are my weapon. And the galaxy will soon remember your kind." The world faded to white. When Ethan opened his eyes again, he was back in his room. His hands were shaking. His veins glowed faintly under his skin. The mark on his arm pulsed like a heartbeat. Outside his door, guards whispered in fear. "The human glows now," one said. "Maybe the princess cursed him." But Ethan wasn't listening. He stared at his reflection in the mirror and saw light moving under his skin, like something ancient waking from a long sleep. He whispered to himself, "What did she do to me?" And far away in the royal tower, Liara stood at her window, her eyes reflecting twin moons. Her voice was cold and filled with sorrow. "I didn't create you, Ethan. I just freed what was already inside you." The secret of her eyes, the morning on the alien world of Virelia, never came gently. The skies were always red before dawn, burning like fire beneath glass. Ethan sat by the window of his chamber, staring at his hands. The faint blue light still pulsed under his skin. Steady and alive, he had tried washing it away, scraping it, even burning it, but it wouldn't fade. It was not light, it was him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw it again, the creature in chains, the roar of pain. Liara's voice calling him a weapon. His stomach turned. He wanted to believe it was a dream. But the marks told another story. The door opened with a soft hiss. 2 guards stood there, tall and armed. "The princess requests your presence," one said coldly. Ethan followed them through the shining halls. The palace felt different now. The servants avoided him. Whispers spreading like smoke. "The cursed human," they murmured. The experiment. When they reached the grand chamber, Liara stood beside a circular table filled with glowing symbols. Her armor was gone. She wore dark robes now, her hair tied back, her eyes sharp but tired. "You remember last night," she said. Not asking but knowing, Ethan crossed his arms. "I remember enough," he said. "You lied to me." Liara looked at him without emotion. "I didn't lie," she said quietly. "I just didn't tell you everything." He stepped closer, his voice low. "You called me a guardian. You said they made me. What does that mean?" Liara touched the table and a projection bloomed between them. A battlefield of light and smoke. Humans and aliens fighting side by side. Huge ships burning, planets torn apart, long ago, before your kind fell, she said. There were guardians. Humans enhanced by ancient energy to protect the galaxy. They were powerful, fearless, and loyal. The image shifted. A human surrounded by fire, glowing like a sun, destroying fleets with bare hands. But the council feared them, Liara continued. So they turned against your kind, erased your history, and buried your power. Ethan stared, his voice cold. And now you've brought it back. Liara's eyes glowed softly. Not me, she said. You. The moment I touched you, the power recognized me. Or maybe it remembered something older than both of us. Ethan's hands clenched. Why me? She looked away, her voice trembling slightly. Because you were the only one left with the gene, the others didn't survive the experiments. The room fell silent. Ethan's heartbeat echoed in his ears. He looked at her, really looked, and noticed it then, the faint mark glowing just beneath her own skin. The same color as his. You have it too, he said quietly. Liara froze. It's not the same. Yes, it is. He stepped closer. Whatever they did to us, it links us, doesn't it? Her silence was his answer. Suddenly the walls shook, a low alarm pulsed through the palace. Liara's calm broke. She turned sharply. They found us. Who? Ethan demanded. The council guard, she said. They know you're awake. They'll kill you before the bond completes. Ethan's head spun. Bond? Liara grabbed his arm. No time to explain. Just run. The door exploded open, smoke and fire pouring through. Dozens of armored soldiers stormed in, weapons glowing red. Ethan ducked as plasma bolts burned past him. Liara raised her hand and unleashed a wave of energy that sent them flying back. The blast shook the room. Go, she shouted, pulling Ethan toward a hidden corridor. Down the lower vaults, hurry. Ethan ran beside her, their feet echoing on the metallic floor. The hallway curved downward into darkness. The lights flickered and the alarm grew louder. Why are they after me? He shouted over the noise. Because you're proof, she shouted back. Proof that the old war never ended, proof that humans can rise again. They reached a massive door, sealed with ancient symbols. Liara pressed her palm against it. Her eyes glowed and the metal cracked open, revealing a dark chamber lined with floating crystals. Inside was a single object and an ancient weapon, a blade made of light and stone resting in midair. What is that? Ethan asked, breathing hard. The blade of Asha, she said. Forged by the first guardians, it chooses its wielder. Before he could react, the soldiers caught up, firing down the corridor. Liara turned, blocking the blast with a shimmering barrier. Touch it, she screamed. Ethan hesitated. What if it kills me? Liara's voice cracked. Then die free, not chained. He ran forward and grabbed the blade. The moment his fingers touched it, light exploded through the room. The soldiers fell back, blinded. The blade's glow spread through his body. The same energy that burned under his skin now roared to life. Ethan screamed, the pain tearing through him. But beneath the pain came something else. Power, clarity, memory. He saw flashes of his past lives, his ancestors, the lost guardians before him. 1,000 voices whispering one truth. You are not broken, you are the last light. When the glow faded, Ethan stood tall, his eyes burning white-blue. The blade had transformed into armor around his arm. Breathing with him, the floor cracked under his feet. The soldiers hesitated, fear flickering in their alien eyes. Ethan raised his hand. Leave, he said, his voice like thunder. Or I'll remind the stars why they feared humans. The ground shook. Energy rippled through the palace. The soldiers fled. Liara fell to her knees. Breathing heavily, her barrier faded and she looked up at him. No longer the broken slave, but something else entirely. Ethan turned toward her, the blue fire still burning in his veins. Tell me the truth, Liara, he said. Did you save me? Or did you wake me for your war? Her lips trembled. Both, she whispered. Because I can't fight what's coming without you. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Then tell me what's coming. Liara rose slowly, her eyes dark and haunted. The return of the Varelian Emperor, she said, and the war that ended the last age of stars. Outside, thunder rolled across the alien sky. The storm was coming, and this time humanity would not kneel. The uprising of blood and fire. The palace was burning. The great towers of Varelia glowed like dying suns against the red sky. The storm clouds above carried not rain but ash and fire. From every corner of the Empire's capital, alarms screamed. Soldiers ran through the corridors, shouting orders that were already too late. Ethan stood at the center of the chaos, his arm still wrapped in the living armor the blade had become. It pulsed like a heartbeat, alive, whispering in a language he almost understood. Around him, the air hummed with power, too much power. His breath came in sharp bursts. He could feel the energy clawing at his mind. Begging to be released, Liara stood beside him, her silver skin marked with streaks of smoke and blood. "You can't stay here," she said, her voice trembling. "The guard won't stop until you're dead." Ethan looked out the shattered window, watching the ships descend through the smoke. "They want to kill me because I exist," he said quietly. "That's not going to stop them, even if I run." Liara turned sharply, grabbing his wrist. "Listen to me, human," she hissed. "You don't know what's coming. The Emperor isn't just returning, he's bringing the old code with him. Every Guardian will be hunted. Every world that helped humans will burn. You're not ready for that war." Ethan met her eyes, calm and steady. "Then teach me." For a moment, she said nothing, then she smiled, not kindly, but like someone standing on the edge of a storm. "You don't ask for small things, do you?" Before Ethan could answer, the wall beside them exploded. A blast of blue plasma ripped through the marble, throwing them both to the floor. Dozens of soldiers stormed in, their armor gleaming red under the firelight. "By order of the Council," their commander shouted, "surrender the human or die with him." Ethan rose slowly, his armor glowing brighter. His eyes burned with white fire. "I've been dying since the day your kind chained me," he said. "Let's finish it." The soldiers opened fire, bolts of plasma rained through the air. Ethan raised his hand when the energy stopped, frozen mid-air. Then it reversed, slamming back into the attackers. The explosion lit the hall like lightning. Liara watched in awe. "The power of a Guardian," she whispered. "I thought it was legend." Ethan looked at his hands, trembling. "It doesn't feel like power," he said. "It feels like something alive, something hungry." Liara placed a hand on his arm. "That's because it is. The blade doesn't just give you strength. It remembers every Guardian that came before you. You're carrying their rage, their hope, their unfinished war." The floor beneath them shook violently. "They're breaching the East Gate," Liara said. "We have to go." Now they ran through the burning corridors, smoke filling their lungs. The sound of distant screams echoed. Through the palace outside, ships were falling from the sky, flaming wrecks crashing into the city. The rebellion had begun, and it wasn't just the soldiers. The people were rising too. Liara led Ethan down a hidden passage, the walls lined with glowing sigils. "This tunnel leads to the old catacombs," she said. "It's how my ancestors escaped during the last uprising." Ethan stopped suddenly. "Wait, you said rebellion. Who's fighting?" Liara hesitated. "Not all of Virelia follows the Emperor. There are those who still believe in the old alliance, humans and Virelians standing together. They've been waiting for a symbol to rise again, and now," she looked at him, "they have you." The tunnel shook as something massive struck above. Dust fell from the ceiling. Liara stumbled, and Ethan caught her for a brief moment. Their eyes met, fire and starlight, and the world went silent. Then the floor cracked open. A massive drone crashed through the ceiling, its mechanical eyes glowing red. It fired instantly. A beam of pure energy ripped through the air. Ethan pushed Liara aside, the blast grazing his shoulder, burning through the armor. The pain hit like lightning, but instead of falling, Ethan roared. The armor reacted, spreading across his body like liquid fire. He leapt faster than the drone could track. Driving his fist through its metal chest, sparks exploded, circuits screamed, and the machine collapsed in a heap of smoke and broken light. Liara stared wide-eyed. That shouldn't be possible." Ethan turned to her, his voice calm, almost distant. "Neither should a slave standing beside a princess." They emerged into the open air. The city was chaos. Ships burning, towers collapsing, alien civilians running in panic. The air smelled of ozone and blood. Above, the Emperor's flagship loomed. A shadow blocking out the stars, Liara froze, her face pale. "He's here," she whispered. "The Emperor?" Ethan asked. "Yes," she said, her voice barely a breath. "My father." The ground trembled as a column of light descended from the ship, forming a platform of pure energy, and from it stepped a tall figure, his armor black and gold, his eyes burning like suns. "Liara," he said, his voice echoing like thunder. "You have betrayed your blood for a human." Liara's voice shook. "Father, you don't understand. He's not just human, and he's the key to—" "Silence," the Emperor boomed. "The Guardians are dead, and so will he be." Ethan stepped forward, the wind swirling around him. His voice was quiet but filled with fury. "You chained my kind. You called us savages. You thought we'd stay broken forever. The Emperor raised a hand. You're dust, Ethan smiled faintly. Then remember this dust. The two forces collided. Light and shadow clashed. The explosion shattered the sky. Thunder rolled across the burning world. When the smoke cleared, Ethan was on his knees, his armor cracked, blood dripping from his mouth. The Emperor towered over him, raising his weapon. Liara screamed and ran toward them, but she was thrown back by the shockwave. As the Emperor brought the blade down, Ethan caught it with his bare hand. The energy burned through his flesh, and yet he held it. His eyes snapped open, blazing with pure white light. Enough, he growled. The blade of Asha flared back to life. Merging with the Emperor's weapon in a burst of blue fire, the shockwave knocked the Emperor back. Ethan rose slowly, his voice shaking the air. You can't kill what you created, the Emperor stared, fury and fear mixing in his gaze. What are you? Ethan stepped closer. I'm the reminder of everything you tried to erase. Lightning tore through the clouds above as the two powers met again. Liara watched through the storm, her heart pounding. She knew the war had truly begun, not for a throne, not for a planet, but for the right to decide what it meant to be human. And as the light consumed the sky, one truth became clear. The galaxy would never forget the night a human stood against gods. The truth of the human weapon. The world burned beneath the stars. The air was thick with smoke, ash, and the sound of falling ships across the horizon. Virelia's capital city, once called the Jewel of the Empire, had become a graveyard of light and ruin. The sky glowed red from orbital fire, and the streets ran like rivers of molten glass. Ethan stood among the wreckage, his armor cracked and smoldering. The blade of Asha flickered weakly on his arm, every pulse of light slower than the last. His vision blurred, his body trembling with exhaustion. Around him lay the remains of the Emperor's guard, silent, shattered, their weapons still glowing from the battle that had just torn heaven open. But the Emperor was gone, not dead, not defeated, and vanished into the flames like a shadow escaping the dawn. Liara limped toward Ethan through the smoke, her face streaked with blood. Her once white cloak burned black. She knelt beside him, breathless. You stopped him, she said, her voice breaking. But he's not gone, is he? Ethan looked up at the dark sky, his voice low, rough. No, he whispered. He ran, because he's afraid now. Liara glanced at the glowing cracks in his armor. You can barely stand, you'll burn out if you keep using that power. Ethan smiled faintly. It's not mine to keep anyway, he said. It's borrowed. From ghosts older than your empire. Before Liara could speak, the ground trembled. The sound of engines thundered overhead. Dark ships descended through the clouds, their hulls marked with the sigil of the Council, the true rulers of the galaxy. The Emperor had called them, or maybe they had been watching all along. Liara's eyes widened. No, it's too soon, they weren't supposed to move yet. Ethan turned toward her. Who are they? The Council of Ascendancy, she said. They control everything, even my father. They were the ones who created the Human Weapon Project. They made you, Ethan, and now they've come to take you back. Ethan's jaw clenched. The word weapon burned in his chest like poison. I'm not theirs, he said coldly. Not anymore. The ships landed with a roar. The air rippled with energy fields as soldiers in black armor marched out. They carried spears of light, their movements precise and inhuman. At their center walked a tall figure in silver robes, a woman with no face, only a mask of glass that reflected the world like a mirror. Her voice echoed across the battlefield, calm and chilling. Subject 47B, she said. You are property of the Council. You will surrender the blade and submit for reclamation. Liara stepped in front of him, her voice fierce. He's not your property. He's not a number. The woman tilted her head slightly. You are mistaken, Princess. He was designed for obedience, not love. Ethan's hand tightened around the blade. His voice was a whisper, but it carried like thunder. I was designed for survival. He moved before anyone could react. The blade of Asha roared to life again. Blue fire tearing through the air, the soldiers opened fire. But the bolts never reached him. They bent, curved and exploded midair. His eyes blazed white, and the earth itself cracked beneath his feet. The masked woman lifted her hand, and the sky turned black. A dome of energy fell around them, cutting off sound and light. Inside it, she floated calmly above the ground, her mask now glowing red. You think you're free? She said. You're still bound to the code, human. You were never meant to lead, not only to fight and die. Ethan's voice shook with anger. Then I'll die my own way. They clashed in silence. The dome filled with blinding light, each strike of the blade echoed through the ground. The masked woman's speed was inhuman, but Ethan fought like a storm unleashed. His armor burned, his bones screamed, but he didn't stop. Liara watched helplessly outside the barrier, tears streaking through the dust on her face. Finally the light broke. The dome shattered. The masked woman staggered back, a crack running down her perfect mirror-like face. Her voice trembled for the first time. "Impossible," she hissed. "The bond has advanced too far." Ethan raised the blade, its light reflecting in her broken mask. "You said I was made to obey. But she taught me to choose." He nodded toward Liara. The woman's voice turned sharp, desperate. "Then you will destroy her too. That's what your kind always does. That's the curse written into your blood." Her hand rose one last time, but Ethan was faster. He drove the blade through her chest, light burst outward, tearing her apart in a storm of shattered glass and energy. The shockwave threw Ethan backward. Slamming him into the ground, Liara ran to him, catching his head in her lap. "Ethan, stay with me," she cried. His eyes flickered open, faint light still pulsing beneath his skin. "They made me a weapon," he whispered weakly. "But you made me human again." Liara shook her head. "Don't talk like that, you're not done. You still have to face him. My father won't stop until he destroys you." Ethan's gaze drifted toward the burning sky. "Then I'll end him before he ends anyone else." Liara gripped his hand tightly. "You don't understand. The Emperor isn't the same anymore. The Council rebuilt him after the last war. He's not just flesh now, he's something worse." Ethan's heart pounded. "What do you mean?" Liara looked away, her voice barely a whisper. "They fused him with the core, the same power that once created the Guardians. He's not just a ruler, Ethan. He's the first weapon." Ethan's eyes widened, the realization striking deep. "So that's the truth," he breathed. "They didn't destroy the Guardians. They turned them into monsters." Liara nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "And now the monster is coming home." In the distance, thunder rolled again, but this time it wasn't weather. It was engines, hundreds of them, descending from orbit. The Emperor's fleet had returned. Ethan rose slowly, the blade reforming along his arm, brighter and heavier than before. "Then we make our stand here," he said, his voice calm. "If the first weapon wants to destroy his last, he'll have to come down and face me." Liara stepped beside him, her own eyes beginning to glow faintly. "You won't face him alone," she said, "not this time." Above them, the stars flickered as the shadow of the Emperor's flagship blotted out the sun. The storm of the end was coming, and the galaxy would soon witness the moment when creation finally turned against its creator. The final war of man and God had begun, the return of the Emperor. The night before the final dawn felt endless. The sky above Virelia was no longer blue or red. It was black, carved open by the arrival of the Emperor's fleet. 1,000 warships hovered in the clouds, their engines humming like the growl of an ancient beast. Every shadow carried the weight of death. Every heartbeat was a countdown. Ethan stood at the edge of the ruined city, the wind tearing through his torn armor. The blade of Asha pulsed with faint light along his arm, whispering to him in voices that sounded like echoes of ghosts. Liara stood beside him, her cloak fluttering, her expression steady but haunted. "They say the Emperor doesn't come down for anyone," Ethan murmured, staring at the sky. "Guess I should feel honored." Liara's voice was soft but firm. "He's not just coming for you. He's coming to erase the memory of what you are." Ethan turned to her. "You knew this would happen when you freed me?" She nodded slowly. "Yes," she said, "and I would do it again." Before he could reply, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The air shimmered, light bending in impossible ways, then, to silence, a golden storm tore open the sky, and from it descended a massive figure. Not quite human, not quite machine. His armor was forged from the same energy as Ethan's blade. But older, darker, the Emperor had returned. Every step he took shook the ground, his voice rolled across the ruins like thunder. "You've brought chaos to my world, you've defied your creators, and now you will kneel." Ethan stood his ground, his voice low but unshaken. "You created slaves and called them order. You burned worlds and called it peace. I don't kneel to tyrants." The Emperor's helm tilted, and his glowing eyes flared. "Then you die as one of them." He raised his hand. and the sky cracked open. A beam of pure white light roared downward. Ethan jumped aside, the ground exploding behind him. He charged forward, blade flaring, slashing upward. Sparks and fire exploded on impact as their weapons collided. The sound was like metal screaming. Liara moved to help, but a force field pushed her back, trapping her behind a wall of energy. "No!" she cried, slamming her fists against it. "Ethan!" The Emperor struck again. Faster than lightning, Ethan blocked the blow. But the shockwave threw him through the air. Crashing him into a tower, he spat blood and rose, breathing hard. The armor on his chest flickered, his veins glowing brighter with every heartbeat. "You can't win," the Emperor said. Walking closer, "You carry my design, my strength, my failure. You are me, the broken piece of my creation." Ethan's eyes blazed white. "Then maybe that's why I'm the one who'll end you," the Emperor laughed, the sound hollow and cruel. "You can't kill what you are." "Boy, you are my echo," he lunged. Their blades meeting again, sparks of energy split the air. Ethan's movements grew faster, his body a blur of blue fire and silver light. But the Emperor matched every strike with monstrous precision. The ground around them cracked, rivers of molten stone spilling across the battlefield. "You feel it, don't you?" the Emperor hissed. "The hunger, the fury, the program inside you screaming to obey." Ethan gritted his teeth, his voice breaking through the roar. "I'm not your weapon." The Emperor grabbed his throat and lifted him off the ground. "You can't fight your own blood." But something in Ethan's eyes changed, a calm, burning focus. "You're right," he whispered. "I can't fight my blood, but I can rewrite it." He slammed his hand against the Emperor's chest. The blade of Asha flared with violent light, merging with the Emperor's armor. The energy screamed, the Emperor staggered, trying to tear free, but Ethan held on. The light burned through both of them, carving their outlines against the night sky. Liara screamed from behind the barrier. "Ethan! Stop, you'll destroy yourself." Ethan turned his head slightly, his face calm now. "It's not destruction," he said softly. "It's freedom," the Emperor roared in rage. "You fool! You'll tear apart the core itself!" Ethan's eyes flared brighter than the stars. "Then maybe it's time someone did." The blade erupted, the light shot upward, ripping through the Emperor's chest and exploding into the heavens. The sound was deafening. The fleet above shattered, ships disintegrating in waves of white fire. The energy storm spread across the planet, purging everything made by the old empire. Liara shielded her face as the blast swept past. When the light finally faded, silence fell. The battlefield was gone, the towers were dust. The air shimmered with particles of silver light falling like snow. In the center of the crater, only one figure remained, Ethan, kneeling. His armor cracked and burning, the Emperor was gone, only ashes where a god once stood. Liara ran to him, falling to her knees beside him. "Ethan, please," she whispered. "Stay with me." He smiled faintly, the light fading from his eyes. "I told you," he said, his voice weak but peaceful. "I wasn't made to obey." She grabbed his hand, tears falling onto the cracked armor. "You can't leave. You freed my world." His fingers brushed her cheek. "Then build something better from it," he murmured. "No chains, no gods, no weapons." The glow in his chest flickered one last time. The blade of Asha pulsed gently, and then dissolved into dust. Drifting upward like stars returning home, Liara cried out, clutching his body as the first dawn broke over Viralia. The sun rose through the smoke, turning the world gold once more high above. The last traces of the fleet burned away, leaving the stars clear and quiet. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was free. And as the light touched the ruins, a soft whisper echoed through the wind. Ethan's voice faint but eternal. The promise beyond stars. The war had ended, but peace had not yet begun. The Empire's cities were silent, their towers broken, their people lost. The stars above burned cold and distant, witnesses to both destruction and rebirth. For the first time in 1,000 years, no emperor sat upon the throne of Viralia, no fleet patrolled the skies, and no human wore chains. Princess Liara stood on the balcony of the ruined palace, her silver eyes fixed on the horizon. The wind carried the scent of ash and metal, yet beneath it there was something new. Life. Green vines had begun to grow through the cracks of shattered marble, and in the distance children, human and alien, played together among the ruins. But her heart was not at peace behind her. The council chamber flickered with dim blue light. The surviving members of the royal court had gathered, voices rising in anger and fear. The humans will revolt again. The Guardians will return and destroy us all. Liara has doomed the bloodline. Liara turned slowly, her cloak brushing the floor. Her voice cut through their noise like a blade. The bloodline was doomed the day it forgot mercy, she said. Ethan died to free us all. And yet you still speak of fear and control. An old noble spat on the floor, his face trembling. You speak of that creature as if he were divine. Liara's eyes glowed faintly. No, she said softly. Not divine, human, and that's what terrifies you, isn't it? That a human, broken and enslaved, rose higher than all our kings. Silence followed. The nobles stared but said nothing. Their world had changed, and none of them knew what to build from the ashes. Liara turned and walked out, the doors closing behind her with a whisper. She made her way to the old courtyard where the wind sang through the burned statues. At its center stood a single monument, a simple pillar of stone marked only by a symbol, a human hand and a Varelian one, carved side by side. She knelt before it, resting her hand on the cold surface. You told me to build something better, she whispered. But how do I build without you? The wind stirred, carrying faint whispers, fragments of memory. For a heartbeat, she thought she heard his voice, whine soft, distant like the echo of a heartbeat across time. You already are, she looked up sharply. And for a moment, just a moment, she saw him, Ethan, standing at the edge of the light. His body was not flesh anymore but energy, pure and calm. His form flickered like a flame between worlds. Ethan? She breathed, her voice trembling. He smiled faintly. You kept your promise, he said. The world lives. Tears filled her eyes. You died for it. I didn't die, he said gently. I became what the blade was always meant to be. Not a weapon, but a bridge. Liara reached out, her fingers brushing the air, but they passed through him. I can't feel you, she whispered. You're not supposed to, he said. The galaxy doesn't need gods or guardians anymore. It needs memory. It needs hope. And that's what you are, she shook her head, her tears falling. I can't do this alone. Ethan's light flickered softly. You're not alone, Liara, every human freed. Every alien who chose peace. They're your strength now. Don't build empires. Build homes. His image began to fade, the wind carrying him into the rising sun. Panic filled her chest. Wait, she cried, will I ever see you again? For a moment silence, then his voice returned, faint but warm. When the stars whisper your name, I'll be there. And then he was gone. Liara stood there for a long time, the light of dawn spilling across her face around her. The city slowly woke. Engineers rebuilding bridges, farmers planting seeds in alien soil, and children laughing where soldiers once stood. She rose and walked toward the great courtyard, her eyes burning with new purpose. A crowd had gathered, humans and aliens alike, looking to her for direction. One of them, a small human child, tugged at her cloak and asked softly, Princess, who was he? Liara knelt and smiled, her voice steady. He was the first guardian, the one who showed us what it means to be free. The crowd bowed their heads, a quiet reverence spreading through the ruins, and then Liara raised her hand. No more kings, she said, no more slaves today. We begin as one people, cheers rose, echoing across the valley far above beyond the clouds. A single streak of light cut across the sky, a comet or perhaps something else, and for a fleeting instant, the world seemed to hear a voice in the wind. Strong and calm, guard them, Liara. They are the future. The princess looked to the heavens and whispered back, I will. And as the stars burned bright over a reborn world, the legend of Ethan, the last guardian, became the foundation of a new age. An age where humanity was not feared or worshipped, but remembered. For in every world that rose from ruin, they spoke his final vow, carved upon the stones of peace in the hearts of every child who dreamed of the stars.